We are back, and now to the business of this hour. What passes for the breaking news this Sunday night? All eyes on that neck-and-neck race for governor in Georgia, where Democrat Stacey Abrams is hitting back at her opponent, Brian Kemp, who is accusing Georgia Democrats, without evidence, we should quickly add, of hacking state voter registration files. Abrams this morning calling the move an act of desperation.
He is desperate to turn the conversation away from his failures, from his refusal to honor his commitments, and from the fact that he is part of a nationwide system of voter suppression that will not work in this election, because we are going to outwork him, we're going to outvote him, and we are going to win.
Kemp, remember, happens to be Georgia's Secretary of State. He announced an investigation into the questionable allegations in a statement this morning, and we quote, "We opened an investigation into the Democratic Party of Georgia after receiving information from our legal team about failed efforts to breach the online voter registration system and My Voter Page. We are working with our private sector vendors and investigators to review data logs. We have contacted our federal partners and formally requested the Federal Bureau of Investigation to investigate these possible cyber crimes. The Secretary of State's office will release more information as it becomes available."
Joining us now is Alex Stamos. He's the former head of security for Facebook. He's now an MSNBC cybersecurity analyst. Alex, thanks very much for being with us. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Rachel.
So this was obviously an explosive claim today, but we've been looking into it this afternoon and into this evening. From a distance, it seems like what may have happened here is that Kemp's office got notified that there were problems, there were evident problems in terms of the security of the Georgia voting system that he oversees. He responded to that notification essentially by claiming that the Democrats must have been trying to hack into the system if they found all of those vulnerabilities. That's what we're sort of discerning from a distance. Can you help us understand what actually happened here?
That's right. There's a history here in Georgia of independent third parties reporting possible vulnerabilities to the Secretary of State's office. This has happened over and over again for the last several years. And in this case, within hours of getting notification of a new vulnerability in their website, they came out with this press release, possibly blaming the Democratic Party. It's just part of a tradition here of not taking these vulnerabilities seriously. And in this case, making a really reckless claim before there could possibly be any data to back it up.
And you said that there's a history of third-party groups notifying Georgia about problems in their system. Does Georgia actually have worse problems than other states do in terms of their security? I know there have not only been notifications, there's been lawsuits by good government groups. Do they actually have a problem in that state?
I think they have a number of problems. First, Georgia is one of only 5 states in the United States that does not have a paper backup to their voting. This means that if there is a direct attack against the voting infrastructure, we will not be able to recreate what happened in that state with any certainty. That is really unacceptable with the level of risk our elections are facing these days. The second issue is that there's been a history over the last 2 years of a number of groups coming to Georgia and saying, we have found vulnerabilities in your system. And the way responsible organizations deal with this in 2018 is they say, thank you for turning that over, we'll investigate it, and they work to fix the flaw. And instead, the Secretary of State has continuously threatened those researchers, in this case, specifically pointing the finger to political opponents without having any evidence to back it up.
Alex Stamos, the former head of security for Facebook. Really helpful to have you with us now. Alex, thanks very much for helping us to understand this.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.